One.
Coming to you live from deep within a very, very, very cold radioactive wasteland. We're the survivors of the alt-right Kekpocalypse, wading into battle against very, very, very slutty zombie hordes with Rantzerker number. Help me out, Brian.
Fuck. Hold on.
Well,
230.
Because that's basically
you didn't prepare me for that one. I thought maybe you would have looked. 230.
Yeah, but you know what? That ad-libbing was beautiful.
I don't know, Karen.
That is exactly what we're talking about today. A whole lot of fucking. All right, Rantzerker number 230. OnlyFans models.
Yeah, no, my mind is full of fuck.
Man marathon session. All men to blame. I am your host, Allison, and with me is the entirety of the Brain Trust. Well, I guess not.
We got latrine, chocolate mousse, and deja vu. And me.
Which one
you
of us
figure
is
out which
gasoline?
You figure out which is which.
All right. So let us begin. Shall we start with the article? So just to give you guys a rundown, there is a woman on OnlyFans who advertised to have 100-man booty call, and 100 men showed up and did indeed smash that.
Yeah,
and
well, because because she was just like $1,000 a head.
Yeah, they got paid.
Mm-hmm. They did,
and figuratively.
Just before we continue, Brian. I think we're having a technical
I was thinking that they got paid for that.
The vertical
didn't they film it?
No, she charged $1,000.
Oh, that's crazy.
Live.
She made $100,000 on
now
this.
It changes my perspective just a little bit more on this. There's plenty of stuff I've said about it already on X, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was about Mr. 100, because he paid $1,000 to smash a pussy that was just hit by 99 other guys.
Yeah, was it prorated? Like,
are you sure?
Paid $10 and everybody, but before
the actual number is 101 at the end. So,
right, but I'm pretty sure from what I gather, she was like, "I'm gonna make $100,000 on this."
All right.
Oh, geez, and she's crying all the way to the bank now.
I think that we just got picked up on the vertical. Is that correct, Brian? So do I have to restart the intro?
No.
Okay.
Well, maybe there was a delay in it starting. Let me just go back here. No, it started. Yeah.
But
all right.
But she makes like something like $300,000 or $400,000 a month from OnlyFans. So it's like, what do you need an extra $100,000 for? Right? And
no, I heard that
my dad would be proud of me. You heard that she got.
I'm sorry. I'm still recovering from my dad would be proud of me. My dad is proud.
Yeah, my dad would be well.
My dad would be calling those nice young men in their clean white coats to come and take me away.
Yeah, my dad would not be proud of. I think that he would probably want me to be taken away and then have my brain scanned and said, "Has she been replaced by a pod person?"
My dad would send me to a convent.
there's sluttiness, and then there's whatever this is.
Well, my one of my sisters was a little bit slutty in her teens, and he threatened to send her to go live in a convent.
Yeah. See, a little bit slutty, my dad wouldn't have had a lot to say about, but this he would have considered unhealthy and dangerous, and would have considered me a danger to myself in this situation. And with her choices, I've said this on X as well. You do what you want with your body. It's your body, your choice, all that crap, but at least take some accountability for it.
That's what we're here
don't
for.
play victim of it. It's your choice. You did it. You decided it. You set out to do this, and you say you're going to do it again, and you're not a victim if you've added all those details.
Well, and this whole Julie Bindel freaking headline, shame on the men exploiting Lily Phillips. Exploiting her how?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
How?
Yeah. Well, so I watched
It's a fair exchange, as gross as it is. It's a fair exchange of goods, of like currency for service, right?
Yep.
And and she's the one who gave the invitation.
I
right?
didn't actually
She's the
hear that
one who charged the money.
I didn't hear that she actually
did.
charged the men, because I know that apparently the numbers that I've been hearing is that she got 2.5 million off of this, and not from the men, but from everything else, which I guess would be the people watching it, the spectacle. I don't know. Maybe she got some
that's what I've been hearing too.
Sponsorship.
Well, all I know is what Sargon of Akkad reported.
I think she's getting a deal from Nike. Just do it.
Yeah. Well, see, I said something about this too. She's not gonna get a dime from women's tiers. She's not gonna get a bunch of women sending her money because, oh, you screwed 100 men and you feel bad about it now. She's not gonna get Julie Bindle's not gonna send her anything, right? Ms. Magazine's not gonna send her anything. They might pay her to do an interview at best, but there's no financial benefit, no business benefit to her to play victim like this. It's not just dishonest.
Well,
it's also bad business.
Okay, but is this girl playing victim, or is Julie Bindle just saying, well, she's victimizing herself?
She cried during an interview about this.
Yeah, but okay, all right.
I'm sorry, but I unless she's going to step up in that interview and say, hey, it went differently than I expected. I'm a little emotional about it, but it's okay. This was my choice. And instead of throwing her coworkers, which is what men are, under the bus, because if she filmed that and it went out on OnlyFans and this was this was porn, right? Those are her coworkers. She's not a victim. She's a shitty coworker.
Well, maybe her dad wasn't as proud as she thought he'd be.
No, maybe he wasn't. But even if he was, or wasn't, again, like it's fair to talk about it like an athlete talks about a bad performance or a performance that didn't go the way they wanted, or any other business. You talk about things like, gosh, if I'm going to do this again, I'll do this the next time, or I'm not going to do this again. But to throw your colleagues under the bus,
and it didn't.
Well, let's be. I actually watched. I watched the whole snippet. She teared up, but she didn't necessarily throw her colleagues under the bus. In fact, there was one point where someone, like the documentary filmmaker, she explained how her eyes were stinging because she had gotten so much bodily fluids in them, and she said, but we wanted them to not the face, just anywhere else on the body to make the deposit. And the filmmaker, the documentary filmmaker, was like, oh, so they didn't listen? And she said, no, I think it was more like an accident. So she at least stood up for her co-workers when the documentary filmmaker was implying that they were engaging in something unethical. She said, no, I think it was just, it's just sort of a situation. Some stuff got out of control. And as for the crying, like, yeah, maybe it was more impactful than she thought emotionally. So fair enough. She cried. Yeah. I think that it could be is playing the white lady, shall we say. And she's appropriating victimhood on behalf of this woman, and everybody else is. They're saying, oh, well, she must have been exploited by the men. But you know what? I think I'll go like full MRA on this. Like, I'm going to go full. She's exploiting the men. I'm just laying that down there. She's exploiting. I listened to some of these guys talk about this situation. Yeah. It sounds like they were massively touch-starved and desperate. I mean, a lot of these guys probably haven't had a hug in a couple decades. And then you dangle something like this in front of them, especially in a society that shames men for being virgin to the point of considering them terrorists. You know, I could see a lot of men who have no opportunities. Like they see none on their horizon. And not just none for sex, none for even getting a hug. Hell, I bet a bunch of those men did this, considered the sex payment for the damn hug that they probably didn't get. All right, so it's like, this is exploitation of men being touch starved. I'm going to go full MRA on this. She's exploiting men who are touch starved, who are willing to engage in this. And I remember on Twitter, I was having this argument with someone, and they said, well, I mean, these men chose to degrade sexuality. They chose this disgusting way of, and they're denying the truth of sexuality as an emotional bonding moment. I'm like, people who are starving have resorted to cannibalism.
This wasn't their idea.
But
it wasn't their idea.
But and she's the one who banged 100 different people in 24 hours.
Like, that's my point. If you're going to do something like this, you own it and you be prepared for it. And maybe part of the reason that she wasn't prepared for it is because of the really bad way that sex education is done. And I don't know if it's the same in Canada as it is in the US, but when I had sex education and when my kids had sex education, you know, they mentioned a bunch about gestation. They mentioned a bunch about sexually transmitted diseases. They talked about consent and all that. Not once did we learn anything about the effects of oxytocin on the brain during the bond that's created, and what happens when you create that oxytocin bond and then you split off from that person and then you don't associate with them again. And to do that 100 times in one day, you got to really be prepared for that. Somebody has to understand what's happening in their brain and be prepared that I'm going to go on an emotional roller coaster when I do this. And if you're not ready for that, you shouldn't be doing that job. Just like, I'm going to compare it, even though sex isn't the same as conditions of poor health, right? But when I worked at the gas station and when I worked as a nurse's aide, I had things like, I took care of a few people who had very serious medical conditions, and people who every bodily fluid that you could expel, they were expelling. And there were foul smells, there were painful experiences that the patients went through. I took care of gas station bathrooms where when people would get mad, they would spread poop on the walls, and where people would come in sick and vomit on the floor. We had to clean up heroin off the floor. Just all kinds of stuff like that. You either toughen up and learn to deal with your body goes through a series of reactions, whether it's intimacy or disgust or caregiving and a loss. I have had people die that I took care of. They got to the end of their terminal illnesses and passed away. And you have to be prepared to deal with that, or you do some other job that doesn't involve that stuff. And this woman, I think part of it may be that our society doesn't really prepare young people to understand what's happening to them when they have sex with somebody. That used to be a morality discussion your parents had with you, and they replaced it with an educational discussion about a medical perspective,
body parts and pregnancy and disease.
Right. And so you have this combination. She's not mentally prepared. She's not emotionally prepared, and she doesn't have all the information. And apparently her profession isn't preparing her either. And, I got to thinking of, like, Anna Cherry was a neuroscience major. She could prepare herself for stuff like that because she understood the brain chemistry. She knew what she was getting into. And when she has talked about this on air, she's talked about how you don't just go into it like, oh, this is going to be a fun trip. You actually own what you're doing and be prepared to create boundaries within yourself and work within a framework of, I'm going to take these emotional hits and I'm going to process them. And that's a healthy way to do porn. And this isn't. This just isn't. I don't think she had any of that. And I don't think the people that work with her in the industry prepared her for it. She had bad job training, and she was not a good coworker. And maybe she wasn't as bad as Julie Bindel makes her look. But I haven't seen anywhere where she's coming back and said what Julie Bindel said was wrong.
Well, she might not even know like that Julie Bindel's talking about this. But I mean,
who the fuck is Julie Bindel anyway? Like,
I don't know. I doubt that. It's like
we haven't
in
gotten
this for publicity.
We haven't gotten to the article yet.
Yeah.
But Allison, go ahead. I'd like to start it.
Okay, so I'll do the things. So if you're listening and you want to send us a tip, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/just the tip. And if you want to send a comment with that tip, it's pretty much the best way for you to send a comment. So comment plus tip, feedthebadger.com/just the tip. And if you want to support the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support, because I believe that we may be the only group of people that hold women responsible for anything. Because I'm not like, I don't necessarily want to get into what she did and how gross it is and whatever else and the destruction of the social fabric. That's a different kind of conversation. I want to point out how many people are putting the blame on the men, and compulsively so. Like, I've had argument after argument after argument on Twitter. The truth is that if this woman woke up that morning and said no, it wouldn't have happened. She consented to have sex with 100 people in a day. Those men consented to have sex with one person. If one of them said no, it's still happening. In fact, there was a whole bunch last minute who said no, and apparently they had to scramble to find more people. They were actually asking some of the participants, if you got friends you can bring, bring them.
Oh, God.
We'll have like a fajita barbecue afterwards or some shit. Like it was so. Anyway, this situation is entirely of her construction. She is the one making the money. She is the one paying for the staff. She is the one receiving the funds from these men. Like this is her thing entirely. And she is the only one who could have stopped it from happening. And you cannot change that by saying, well, if we lived in a world where every man was a Buddha, Christ, crystal dragon, ascended being, this would never have happened. Like, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Off with their dicks.
Of course, if she gets on the internet and broadcasts, hey guys, here's an opportunity to lose your virginity, and no strings attached, and you'll actually be part of the club of men who actually have been sexually successful. And she advertises, of course she's going to find a whole bunch of men who are either fascinated by the novelty or it's their fetish, or desperate kids. I wonder if they even checked for age. Desperate kids who want to lose their virginity or haven't been hugged since they were 9. Of course, she's going to find a whole bunch of men like that. And this is the thing. These guys aren't exploiting her. Like I said, I'm going to go full MRA. She's exploiting that for this stunt, which she then made a $2.5 million on.
When she was already making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month.
And she was already making hundreds of dollars. No reason for this to do it except greed. And all of the men who joined up, sure.
Well, there is one other reason to do it. That it would be narcissism.
Yeah.
There's a reason to do it. Attention.
All of the men who signed up for this, do you think that all of them did it because they just wanted to exploit a woman? No, I'm guessing that none of them did it for that. They all did it for their own reasons, just like she did, but she's the only one who could have stopped it. And nothing changes that. There's no argument that you can make that changes the fact that she had her hand on the brake the entire time. Yeah. They didn't. Okay.
All right.
So did you do the things yet? Can we get into the article?
Okay.
All right. I missed that part because there was this big rant that came afterwards.
Okay, all right. You just forgot about it. You disassociated like the woman.
Well, I'm like just making sure the stream doesn't crash. I'm looking at other things and I'm kind of listening. I apologize, but I'm just making sure everything goes okay.
Don't apologize. Nothing she said was worth listening to.
Oh, okay. I want to read a couple of She's joking, Allison. I want to read a couple super chats we got before the show started, or right at the beginning. So Grim84 sent us one right before we started for $25. Thank you, Grim. And he said, so basically, conservatives, tradcons, and modern Christians are the mother in that store with the rampaging daughter, telling everyone not to intervene because they don't know what she's been through. They're not against feminism; they are the enablers. Also, a meme for the Badgers, and they share this. Women learning from their consequences of their choices. Women, I got you, sister. Oh no, you don't. Tradcons. So apparently that's the super chow. Thank you for that. Grim 84, and then Xeranx gave us $5 and said, "Well, then it's good to know that her mom is at the head of this thing. Listening to Better Bachelor, women are all over this. The CEO of Only Fools is a woman." So the poor woman motif that so many trad feminists and declared non-feminists want to trot out is denied them. Also, Lily Phillips has employees, which means she pays them. As I said before, the people who need Lily Phillips to be a victim are greater degenerates than she is.
Yes.
All right, thank you for
Yeah,
the super chows.
I don't see a lot of, like, I haven't seen a lot of, like, you could call Carl Benjamin, right? Sargon of Akkad. You could call him a conservative. And he's just like, yeah, this is just gross, and I don't know why any woman would do this, and like she has a right to, but never my daughters would ever, like, I have 2 daughters, and I would just be absolutely horrified if one of them did something like this, right? All the conservatives that I personally know, right, are like, yeah, this is icky, it's gross, right? And they're not saying that because, it's the men are being exploited, or, like they do mention that these are simps, right? Like, and they'll do anything for the cooch, right? Or whatever, or for, a little positive female attention, right? But they do not, they're not trying to rescue Lily Phillips from herself or blame this situation on anyone but her. They're just like, this is gross. Why would any woman do this? Right? And no daughter of mine. Right?
Unfortunately, there is, like, on Twitter, there is definitely a contingent of, I don't know, conservative or Christians who are blaming this on the men. Even though she had her hand on the brake the entire time.
There were a few of my followers that were like that, but I didn't see necessarily a divide between conservatives and liberals on this, or conservatives and progressives in terms of painting her as a victim. What I saw was more of a divide on how they painted her as a victim. Like, I saw people saying, oh, she wouldn't do this if she hadn't been abused at some point. And all of them said the same thing of her being taken advantage of. And it's all bullshit. But it's not
$1,000 a lay. $1,000 a lay is being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring on the dick.
Bullshit.
I could use the money.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the article. I don't think
advantage of. But it's not a conservative or progressive take. It's a gynocentric take, in that spans all of the other political factions.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's basically just caping for women, and that exists everywhere. It's not, the conservatives don't own that. The liberals don't own that per se. But it just expresses itself in different ways. It's either like a conservative argument to protect women, or there's a feminist argument to protect women.
Maybe I just only listen to conservatives who are worth listening to.
Yeah,
maybe that's it.
That's entirely possible, that you only listen to conservatives that have challenged their own gynocentrism. But reading all of this, I'm realizing, I think that men's rights activists have some kind of superpower, the ability to hold women accountable for their actions. Because I have been arguing with a person who just will not acknowledge that she is the only one who could stop this.
Yeah.
And even when I brought up the fact that she's going for seconds, she's not going for seconds. She's going for 10 times the amount now. She did 100 men in a day. Now she's going to go and do 1,000. she has chosen to repeat the experience with 10 times more men.
Well, because it's 10 times more money.
Yeah, she's going to get
Yeah.
$25 million. This woman is going to end up being a billionaire by the time this is concluded. I mean,
You
she's
know,
going to probably need
people
a
are
billion
having
to
sympathy for
reconstruct
her.
body.
People are having sympathy for her doing something that, if attention isn't part of her payment, which I think it is, I think it's probably as much for the attention as it is for the money. But they're having sympathy for her doing something that men do, pretty much without anybody giving it any consideration, right? The primary reason for a lot of men's job choices is, how much money do I make? And they
Yeah.
do that because they have families to support. Society expects them to support their families. The law pushes them to support their families, especially if their partner has used the state as a divider in their family. Well, you can't see your children, but you have to pay me to take care of them. And since you're not there, I need more money, because after I kicked you out of the house and took measures to make sure you can't see your kids, now I have to use childcare.
Yeah.
Logic, right? And
Mhm.
so men will do jobs that are difficult and dirty, dangerous, disgusting, painful, emotionally harmful, boring, all kinds of traumatic. Men will do jobs that are traumatic. Men will run into a burning building just to save somebody who is going to die from the effects of what happened to them in that building shortly after being rescued for money.
Yeah, EMTs.
And nobody
EMTs
has
have just like absolutely amazing, unbelievable levels of
of
PTSD.
toughness. Yeah.
Well,
Just
And
PTSD
nobody
and,
emotional
and
toughness of
nobody goes into it. Nobody becomes an EMT and
Yeah.
stays there for years, right? Who isn't already emotionally really tough, who does
Okay.
not already
Right.
have thick
Well,
calluses.
And what is it
what's
that
the
people are
instances
not
that might
doing for them, Hannah? Because I want you to finish that thought. What is it that?
nobody has sympathy for that. If a man
Yeah.
complains about that, nobody says, "Oh yeah, you poor thing, these people are exploiting you." I remember my dad explaining to me, my dad drove an ambulance when he was young, when he was in high school and in between his years in college, right? This was back in the day when funeral homes owned the ambulances, and he drove the ambulance because he worked at the funeral home. So he was working with cadavers, and he was also driving the ambulance to emergency scenes and accidents. And he was telling me one time about how he prepared himself when he was at the scene of an accident, and he knew he was going to have to pick a woman up and put her on the stretcher when her leg was literally just hanging from a little bit of flesh on the inside of her thigh. The entire rest of the leg had been separated from the body, and he just knew she was going to scream in pain when he picked her up, and it was going to rip his heart out, right? And it's not what ended up happening. Your body does weird things with trauma, and she felt tickled instead of feeling pain, which was fortunate for everybody. But he still had to prepare for that because he didn't know that's what was going to happen. They go through that, and every scene you go to as an EMT, or as a fireman, or as a policeman, or as a soldier going into circumstances where you don't have a predictable outcome. Every emergency room nurse, my grandma used to be an emergency room nurse. Every obstetrics nurse knows that they're going to have to deal with situations like that. And a lot of doctors, a lot of infectious disease specialists, a lot of oncologists. Imagine knowing that sometime, just in the regular everyday course of your work, you're going to have to tell an 8-year-old that they're going to die. And you're going to have to break that news to that child and their parents, and that there's nothing you can do. They're going to go through an illness that's going to take away all of their mobility and their mental capacity and their dignity, and then they're going to die to an 8-year-old. Right? I've had doctors talk to me after that experience, my doctors, and nobody says, "Gosh, mister, I feel so sorry for you. You shouldn't have to do this job. That's so damaging and difficult. You poor thing." You're being taken advantage of by these people that are putting you through this. They're dumping their baggage on you and all. No, they get hailed as heroes sometimes, but most of the time they get nothing from the public, especially if they're men.
Yeah.
Well,
So
because they
I'm
failed,
sorry, but
right?
I don't feel like you get owed that for being in porn either. No hospitality, no entertainment, no nothing deserves any more than what you would give to somebody who cleans up sewage for a living, or mops up somebody else's shit in the bathroom, or has on occasion to give a death sentence to an 8-year-old.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, why do we see this woman's trauma as so much more that we need to invest emotionally in it? And yet there's so many
Well,
more jobs in which people are standing up to horrible things and
Mhm.
taking and dealing with trauma for the benefit of others, not because they're getting a
but
$2.5 million paycheck.
but she isn't even acting traumatized.
Yes,
No,
I
of
got
course.
cum in my eye
And
isn't
I'm
trauma,
crying.
no,
Yeah.
it's
right?
really
I
not
mean,
the
and
same.
honestly, we're hinging all of this, and so is Julie Bindel, on the fact that she was crying for a few seconds after having told us all that her eyes were stinging because of cum accidentally getting in them. I mean, it
I've
could
had
be
cum in
cum.
my eye.
I mean, it could just
It
be.
waters. It waters.
It
That
could be
shit.
the
No,
bodily fluids.
nobody fucking comes on my face ever because of
Okay,
that.
all
It'll
right,
burn through your skin.
okay,
That
fair
shit
enough.
will.
All right, so she
Okay,
got a
so
whole bunch
I'm
of
sitting
that.
here thinking of the women that had bull semen facials.
Yeah, I think the next time maybe somebody should tell her to just get some goggles.
Yeah.
You know, just get some goggles. But my point is that we don't know why she cried. She could be because her
well,
eyes were stinging.
she's gonna do it again with 1,000
But
guys.
here's the other thing: if maybe she cried because she actually got some kind of genuine emotional connection to the desperation of these men, and that upset her. I mean, it's possible that what she was experiencing vicariously in these men upset her, which would actually say a lot more to why she'd want to do it again. Like maybe she's like, I'm taking one for the team. I'm defusing like 100 incel bombs, you know? Like, I'm doing something to try to churn the tide of men's touch deprivation epidemic. You know, maybe
Well,
that's where it's coming from.
no, I don't think so.
I
Because
know,
if that
but
was the case, if that was the case, she'd charge $100 to spoon a man.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, she's definitely going for
Just
the
a spoon.
she's definitely
Spoon
going
for
for
like an
the
hour.
gross out
Yeah.
antics angle here. So yeah,
Ugh.
I'm sure you're right, Karen. Maybe afterwards that occurred to me. Who knows? I doubt anybody would want to pay for that though, because there's no salacious luridness in it. Yeah,
Well,
I
no one's
spooned
going to
100
pay to
men.
watch it. No one's going to pay to watch it, but plenty of men pay to have
Has
someone
anyone
do it.
tried though? Has anyone
No,
tried like an OnlyFans channel and I just hug men?
There you go.
Well, there are women out there who charge for cuddles.
Yeah, actually, there are cuddle cafes.
They just charge for
Yeah.
cuddles.
Yeah,
Like,
but I mean, somebody said in the vertical chat she did it to get her way. What way is she? She's already gotten $2.5 million from this. She doesn't need to get her way anymore, and she's
Yeah,
gonna do it again. Go for like a quarter.
That's why I say it's not about just money. It's about narcissism. Look at me, I did this thing.
Yeah.
Right? It is the
well,
ultimate.
okay.
So
People with
in the
narcissistic personality disorder often have erotomania. There
yeah,
you
that's
go.
true. That's true. I wasn't using it in the clinical sense. I probably should have pointed out, but it's probably possible that it could be used in the clinical sense in this instance. But in terms of social media, you know, if you look at social media as a female version of the male achievement system in video games, right? You look at it as how many views are you getting, how many likes are you getting, how much attention are you getting for this? Because a lot of women, their achievement motivation system, I guess, looks at just attention in general, good or bad, as many as possible, you know, people looking at what they did, people commenting on what they did, people giving them compliments, people talking about their physical appearance and so on. And that to them is achievements, success. It's women's social version of men's economic drive, men's drive to achieve resources and bring home to the family.
Yeah.
And so you have this in just your everyday posts on Twitter, posts or X, posts on Facebook when somebody does their selfie with all, oh, look, I got a new outfit, or I ate this for dinner. Isn't it pretty the way I arranged it on this plate? You know, when it comes to porn is like the ultimate. It's like the cheat code where you know it's the Konami code of social media video. You know you're going to get attention for that just from the get go. And the few women who really are successful, they rocket through all of the achievements, and they get everything. And so when you're in that league of attention whoring and you're playing for more points than the next attention whore, you have to do the next most outrageous thing and the next and the next. And you are putting out a performance. You are engaging in something that's very cerebral. And I imagine she may have cried over that just because, like she said, it's intense. It's an intense form of competition with other women for more attention. And not that that's necessarily anything to support or condemn, but it is just a factor. And you're not a victim of that if you choose to do it. Just like when I say something specifically with the intention of pissing off as many feminists as possible on X, I'm not a victim when I get 6 or 7 women yelling at me over something that I said. Actually, I'm having quite a bit of fun when that happens, just because I get exercise in my argument making, and I hear what arguments people are going to say that I need to consider and come back with. But I mean, I've had people call me all kinds of names, say that I should get raped so I would know what it was like. Post my address on back in the day when it was Twitter, post my parents' address. And I'm not a victim of that. That's a side effect of attention seeking. It's just a different kind of attention seeking. I'm not looking for people to tell me I'm pretty. You know, I'm looking for people to tell me what the arguments are that I'm up against with regard to the issues that I want to talk about. And so I see this from the perspective that she's not a victim. Nobody's done anything to her. Nobody's exploited her. She hasn't laid out a service and then been used by a bunch of people. She has won the attention game, and maybe it was stiff competition, pun intended. But I don't see any reason why anybody should be writing articles blaming men for this. That was strategic on her part, and her payoff is the fact that we are talking about what she did right now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I think that's how Julie Bindel is playing the attention game, is by essentially taking away any recognition of, I mean, I guess it's a very clever, or possibly clever, possibly tough. I don't know. Like,
she's that low-level player in an MMO that joins your high-level party because they can siphon experience off when you fight higher-level monsters and mobs, and they can confront. Oh,
Julie
yeah.
Bindel is okay. All right. So basically,
she's not talented. Julie Bindel is not talented. She's not skilled. She's a shit writer. Her ideas are bad. And she really wouldn't get the attention that she goes for. She can't really do even what we do because her arguments are shit. So the only way that she can get where she gets with stuff like this is to latch onto a woman like this and play victim on her behalf.
And to blame and shame men, because I mean, she's the one who was basically like, men should be kept in concentration camps until they learn how to behave.
All right.
Right?
All right. So, okay, everyone.
Okay, let's
See that
start the
Brian
article.
wants to read the article.
Only 42 minutes later, I still have super chats and stuff too. So let me just read them really quick, and then I'll read the article, and then we'll do it. I'm gonna have a system because I think we need a system. But first, OIC gives us $1 on Rumble and says massive coffee moment. Thank you, OIC. And then Zeranx gave us I think it's $5. Let me just double check here. Why am I not seeing it? Where is the super chat? Well, he gave us $5 super chow, that's what it is, and said, oh no, I already read that one. What's the one that's on the screen? God damn it. You guys, worst, the 100 was practice for the 1,000 challenge is what he wrote.
Yeah.
I didn't see what the donation was. For some reason, it's not showing up, but thank you for that. Okay, so now I'm going to do the article, and the article's this is from the Atlantic.
$2. Thank you, Zeranx. $2.
It's $2. Thank you. Yeah.
The Atlantic. They were actually
Atlantic,
pretty credible back in 1913.
Oh, and again, if you guys want to send any comment on anything you're listening to, feedthebadger.com/justthetip and send us a tip. Okay.
Yep. All right. So now what I'll do is I'll read a paragraph, and you guys can discuss it. You have
we'll shut the fuck up for the paragraph. Okay.
Yeah, shut the fuck up for the paragraph, and then you each get like a minute.
Muting.
So this is entitled "Shame on the Men Exploiting Lily Phillips" by Julie Bindel. In case you guys don't know who Julie Bindel is, she is a what they call her a radical feminist, but there's no such thing as a radical feminist. She's just a feminist from the second wave, a lesbian separatist, political lesbian feminist, right? Very much also
we
a
should just call them
biological
unfiltered.
determinist. She's a TERF. Some people call her a TERF. She's definitely like a women are women type of thing, and believes that men that try to live as women are just trying to invade women's spaces, and would not accept the fact that she is the reason why that exists. But anyway, Lily Phillips, who had sex with 101 men in a single day in October, has hit the headlines. But the focus should instead be on the men that exploit her and the men that queued up to have sex with her. Having appeared in a YouTube film, I Slept with 100 Men in One Day, this young, vulnerable woman is now planning her next endeavor to have sex with 1,000 men in 24 hours, or 1 minute, 44 seconds per sexual encounter, nonstop for a day. Doubtless, this publicity stunt will increase her already substantial annual earnings, but Phillips will pay a heavy price.
Okay.
Well, she's going to need some fluffers for that.
All right. I just want to point out, Bindel has already displayed her hand. Go back up, please, Brian. I just want to address something in this paragraph. Could you go scroll back up a bit?
I did.
Oh,
do you want me to? Oh, you're looking at the article. That's what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So, having appeared in the YouTube film, she wants the focus should instead be on the men. What she means is the focus should be on Julie Bindel calling the men out. So this woman has engaged in this, could you call it a jackass stunt, for all of this attention, and Julie Bindel is like, no, that should be mine.
So basically, this woman, Lily Phillips, is engaging in the attention economy that for women, I don't think money is even like in the top 10. I think attention is the number one thing that they pursue. And Julie Bindel is competing with Lily Phillips for attention.
Yes.
So she's also engaging in the attention economy in a different way.
This is really her way of riding her coattails.
Vulnerable women. This young, vulnerable woman. Really young and vulnerable. Yeah, young. Getting older by the day, right? She better get her freaking body count in as fast as possible before she starts aging like milk, right? But young and vulnerable, no, she's not. She's not vulnerable, right? She's not.
Well, if she was vulnerable, she'd stop after 2, honestly. Like, if she was a vulnerable human being, she would have just been like, "Oh, I can't do any further. I'm stopping after 2. Goodbye." But she didn't. Instead, she engaged I don't know, the crass, I don't know, whatever instinct.
If she was vulnerable, she wouldn't be flashing her tits to a bunch of anonymous men on OnlyFans. for money.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Okay, like,
If she was vulnerable and was doing these things anyway, if she needed to be protected from her own tendency to attention seek through exhibition and being an exhibitionist, that would justify coverture.
it would
Like
justify
you can't have it both
involuntary
ways as a woman.
commitment.
Well, that's why I've said before, you know, if I did something like this, my dad would look at it as me being a danger to myself, right? If he was still around, which he is not. But I'm also not that young. But this young, vulnerable woman thing that she's saying, all right, that is the justification for women can't make their own decisions. Women lack the wherewithal to make their own sexual choices, and therefore women need to be chaperoned by older women who are no longer attractive enough to get what these women are seeking, or by men. And
Yeah.
feminists fought really hard to put a
No,
stop to
no.
that. So now we
I'm
have
sure-
feminists fighting really hard to bring it back.
Mhm.
I'm sure Julie Bindel, as a political lesbian, would really like to be this woman's guardian.
I'm sure she would.
Can I just
hubba.
point something out? If this woman can't be held responsible for her sexual choices and what she does with her body, she can't be held responsible for a vote. Like, how can
Right.
she? Like, it's not compatible with
exactly
a
my point.
realistic. Yeah, let's do another paragraph though, Brian. There.
All right, I got another super chow from Great Indoors for $5. Thank you, Great Indoors. And he says, when there are 100 men and only one woman in a room, things get done. With 3 women, and 1 man, however, stuff turns into a tantric session. All right, thank you. Shots fired. All right, let's do another.
This is a temperate
paragraph.
session. We're having temperate tantrums.
I have interviewed women who have been required to have sex with 8, 10, 12 men every day because they were under the control of a pimp in a brothel, and have heard the details of the terrible effect on their mental and physical health. What this involves is too graphic and disturbing to share, but the physical effects on the body of penetrative sex by numerous men in a short space of time is horrific. Our bodies are not made for this type of punishment.
She's not
Punishment?
dead.
Things here, right? I've been in a room where people who have been trafficked for manual labor have been interviewed, but it doesn't make having a job where you do manual labor exploitation. You make a contract with your employer, you sign up for that, you go do the work and you get paid, and if you don't want to do it, you can quit. It's a very big difference between being forced to do something because you were trafficked. And you can't compare the two, even if you really want to, because the person that you're making up your arguments on behalf of is a woman.
Okay, I just want to interject here. The physical effects. What's she talking about? Sore vagina? A little chafing?
She's
Because
the woman's
Yeah.
walking.
when I got with my current man, he was a 14 timer a day guy. Okay? And yeah. But you know, you get used to, you actually kind of like feeling like you've been rode hard and put away wet. You know, like feeling like when you're walking around at work, oh, I'm being reminded of what I just did like an hour ago, right? Okay, so I'm sorry, but multiple penetrative sex during a day, the physical effect, like this she needs to get a candle maker to make her some like graduated size dildos so that she can actually like stretch out her vagina, because she clearly has vaginismus.
This woman, the Julie Bindel.
Yes.
Okay, there is nothing on this earth that a man could do to make $2.5 million in a day and still be walking after. Like, seriously, this woman, she's walking around, she's doing her thing. There's what is horrific? She's entirely intact. physically intact after the event.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the
Well,
difference
they
between men and
had a
women on
time.
this.
There was a time limit, so it wasn't like they had 5 minutes each, and she probably took water breaks.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, but I'm just saying it's
Oh,
not
She
as
probably
it's
wasn't
not
doing
like she
any.
just.
What
she
what
wasn't
Bindle's
doing any
probably
of the work.
referring to, to just giving her the benefit of the doubt, what Bindle's probably referring to is when women have sex with multiple partners and allows herself to be raw dogged and allows
Yeah, but she wasn't being raw
them to
dogged.
finish inside, which is not what this woman did. But
No.
that can have health consequences because
Of course
women's
it can.
immune systems will, like, if you have one
Well, and
guy
protection is
semen and
not
then the next guy
100%
semen,
sure. So
right? But if you go through multiple guys' semen, you get an immune response happens. So there's also the risk of STIs and stuff like that. But what the circumstances that Bindle is describing, once again, she's talking about a circumstance where women are being trafficked as if it's
Yeah.
the same as a circumstance of a woman who made a
Sent out
choice, made a
invitations.
contract, sent out invitations, was in control of her
the
situation,
entire time.
was completely able to walk away from it if she wanted to. I'm not going to do this anymore. This is not what I thought it was going to be. Sorry, to waste everybody's time, but bye. And nobody could have stopped her because it's sex. Right?
Also,
You quit in the middle of the day.
Yeah,
Just
the only
refund the
thing-
money.
Yeah, she had the hand on the brake the entire time. This happened because she chose to have it happen. She chose at 1, she chose at 50, she chose at 99, and
Yeah.
she chose at 100. Okay, so this
So
is
it's a really dishonest argument to compare her to somebody that's been trafficked. And
Our
it's an
bodies are not
insult
made-
to people that have been trafficked.
I think that actually this experiment, this longitudinal experiment, this experiment suggests that Julie Bindle is wrong, because the only thing she really complained about, she said she was slightly sore, was the bodily fluids in her eyes. And that was the biggest impact. So what you need, apparently, if you're a woman who wants to engage in this, is just make sure you have an eye wash station, right? And then you're fine. Like, this is not, like, we can see Julie Bindle, we can see the effect on her physically. Yeah, it's pretty minor. So maybe
Come in
let's
the
do a-
eye is gonna sting whether it's from one man or 100.
Exactly. And it's actually pretty remarkable that she
consideration
didn't
with
have
come
like
in the eye is
a
STIs.
liter of it. Like,
Well, and
how
your
did-
and your
honestly.
and yeah, and your eyes are immune privileged. Just
Yeah.
so you know.
Yeah, you have quite a
So-
bit. Anybody with allergies can tell you mine are going ballistic right now because something has irritated my my histamine production. So, and I get a fever in my eyes when I have an allergy attack because of that immune response. So it's less likely to get an STI from it ending up in your eye than in your vagina. But
True.
yeah. But yeah, the biggest problem I have with that paragraph really is she is deliberately conflating being enslaved with a choice a woman made. And if you can't tell the difference between your own personal choices and dealing with the fallout, consequences, hardships, and everything of the choices that you make in order to get the benefits you wanted from those choices versus being kidnapped and forced to do things against your will, that right there is your first problem. Bindle is obviously living with delusions, or she's just not very bright.
All right.
Both.
Next paragraph. All right, let me just turn off these things so that I can display this to the people watching in the vertical.
Yeah.
But what of the men that wish to join in on such a competition?
Hey, that
What? I haven't
what
read
of the men
paragraph
that
yet.
wish to? No.
Yeah,
What
that-
of the men
Who?
who wish to?
Oh,
She
okay,
should
okay.
stop
We're getting-
objectifying
means
them.
The
means
grammar
they're
Nazi
Yeah.
is here.
people.
Okay.
That
Well,
means
Bindle's
they're
English. She has no excuse.
But what of the men that wish to join in on such a competition? Why would they want to have sex with a woman after so many others? For me, it raises the image of those men queuing to rape Gazelle
She did it
Pellicott.
again. There
Wait,
is a
I'm not. Let me
huge fucking
finish.
difference.
Let me finish. It is akin to a spectator, because if you guys are talking while I'm reading this,
sorry.
the camera. No, it's okay. The camera won't switch to you because I turned off the scene switcher because I need to read the article and display it for the people watching. So, for me, it raises the image of those men queuing to rape Gazelle Pellicott. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It is akin to a spectator sport. There are mega brothels in Germany that encourage stag parties, often with a dozen men at a time taking part in a gangbang with one woman. It seems hard to believe that such exploits are allowed to take place in the 21st century.
There you go. There you go. She wants control over other women's sexual behavior because that's the only way she can control men. And when you look at what she did here, right, she's again conflating a woman's independent choices to do a job and particularly to go into a specific type of profession that gives her not just a paycheck but also attention and intimacy, versus being raped, which you do not choose. By definition, you don't choose to be raped, right? By definition, it's a thing that you don't want to do and it's inflicted on you against your will. By definition. And then she's conflating that with prostitution, which is sometimes trafficking and sometimes, in countries where it's legal,
sole
women choose
proprietorship.
to do it for the same reasons that women choose to go into porn. And it's not necessarily so much that it's easy money, but it's a job they prefer to cleaning up shit and piss and vomit in a gas station, or taking care of sick people in a hospital, or teaching a classroom full of students, or working in a factory. Like,
I
this
think
is
Julie,
choice versus being
jealous.
choice versus oppression. She doesn't understand the difference.
Well, she does.
I
She's just making an argument in order to explain why, after Lily has gone through all of this whatever she did, labor,
Mhm.
after all of that, why Julie Bindel deserves the attention rather than Lily.
Yeah.
That is the entirety of this argument, is two women, one of which probably isn't even in the ring, but they are battling it out over a resource. And Julie Bindel is putting in her argument why she deserves the resource. And she's doing so by actively destroying perception of Lily's agency, which is essentially making Lily out to be non-sentient.
Yeah.
She's basically she's not even objectifying. She is dehumanizing Lily. She's basically saying that she's a form of a female animal. That's what Julie is doing here. She doesn't have free will. She's not responsible. She doesn't make choices. It's just men making choices. And that's why me pointing that out, me, Julie Bindel, pointing out that Lily isn't a sentient being that makes choices, means that I get the attention. Me.
Yeah, but Lily's still human, right? Because Lily is still a who, right? It's the men who are that's.
Yeah.
Yep.
Supposedly. But the knock-on effect of what Julie Bindel is doing is dehumanizing Lily. I mean, yes.
It's not dehumanizing her, right? It's not dehumanizing her, because we recognize that there are plenty of people who are human beings who have no agency. We recognize that. Slaves.
It's infantilizing her.
Prisoners.
Babies.
Right?
Okay.
It's not even infantilizing, because babies are, we consider babies to be human beings with human value, who don't have agency, who need protection, right?
Well, that's what she's being talked about. Like,
Julie Bindel is dehumanizing in this article is the men who are that's, not whose.
I would argue that she's dehumanizing both.
No,
I'm not saying that she's not dehumanizing the men. Like, let me lay out my argument. The idea of free will is essential to the Christian conception of humanity. And Julie Bindel is essentially saying that Lily doesn't have free will. And if Lily doesn't have free will in this instance, she doesn't have it in any instance, because she's the only one who had the hand on the brake. I don't think that Julie intends to do this, or maybe she does. I don't think Julie gives a fucking shit about Lily. She just is slavering after Lily's resource or attention resources and wants some directed at herself. Like,
Yep.
I think you're overestimating feminists' willingness to confirm the humanity of other women. I don't think feminists regard other women as human. They're just threats to their resources. Then the only reason they advocate for women is because they are one. And what they really advocate for is women, because there are one, having this card that they can get resources from men with. And if you are not recognizing a person as their actions plus a human value, then you're not, you maybe dehumanizing is the wrong word.
It
you are not
is.
recognizing the full person. Julie
Well,
is
because-
not
because
recognizing
if-
the full person.
Because if the inability to recognize someone's actions and hold them fully accountable for their own choices in life was the description or a description or was dehumanization, then the feminists are right. Women have been dehumanized throughout history. All of coverture was dehumanization of women, right? Because they did not have full accountability for their actions. They weren't considered to have full agency, right? They were considered to require protection, right? No, they were not. This is why the second-class citizen shit has never gone over well with me. Every time I see it, I'm like, no, women were different citizens. They weren't second-class citizens. They were different citizens. Right? Women were never not human, right? No.
Well,
Adults.
I mean, in that time,
de-adultification, maybe, right? But even then,
which is
right?
infantilization.
Yeah, but
No, there's no yeah, but
infantilization-
there. Women
No, but
get treated under
infantilization is not a
feminist
form of-
ideology as people who are incapable of making their own decisions and incapable of protecting themselves. Feminists treat women like we are pawns in a game, like we are tin soldiers that they can selectively and strategically move around. They get mad when we have thoughts and feelings of our own that contradict their narrative. They get really hateful when we say things that contradict their narrative, or when we do things that contradict their narrative and it makes the news. And they do talk about women as though they were talking about infants or children that can't be trusted to protect themselves from being exploited. At any time there's an interaction with a woman that may be disadvantageous to a woman in the long run, that she didn't have the capacity to consider that, and the man involved or the nearest man who should have protected her did, and he therefore should have stopped her from engaging in that. And the only time feminists don't talk about women that way is when they are castigating men for doing what feminists say men should do, which is protect women from themselves. When you have to protect somebody from themselves, you are either recognizing someone's lack of maturity and lack of capability to take care of themselves, or you are talking about that person as an individual with a compromising mental health condition or an intellectual disability who has either never developed or lost the normal adult abilities to make their own choices. So
or
they
just
either
somebody who does not have the same legal status, and this is the
well, no,
feminist freaking
no,
trick.
because she's not talking about this in terms of legal status. She's talking
No,
about
but
this
that-
terms in capability, right?
but-
In terms of
but-
capability.
No, but
in
this-
order to maintain this idea of women without the separate legal status, we've had to construct this fiction that women don't have conscious choices, that these
Right.
conscious choices are all done by men. I'm pretty sure as the further you go back, the more people recognize that women did make conscious choices. In fact, you can see that
Yeah.
in the statistics. 1940s, people perceived women to have more agency as women than they do now. So the
Right.
further back, I would guess, the more people were like, no, actually women make choices within the context of their sphere, and they are responsible for the choices within the context of that sphere. Now what's happened is because men and women are equally legal, feminists have to construct this narrative that women aren't responsible for their choices. And that's completely new. Like that
Right.
idea that women, that there's nothing in here except a man in a little driver suit, you know, like pulling the levers. There's nothing in women's brains except little men making all the choices for them. That is definitely 100% feminist. That is definitely 100% Julie Bindel appealing to here.
Allow me to hearken back to one of our old favorites. In the game of patriarchy, women are not the player, they're the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes,
Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I remember.
You know who
that.
said that? Do you know who said that?
Anita Sarkeesian.
Anita Sarkeesian.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. I got some more super chats I want to read, and then I like to do the next paragraph. Richard B. Air gave us $5 in the super chat. Thank you, Richard, and says it does depend on how someone is defining human trafficking in the age of My Truth. After all, Eliza Blue also claimed to be a victim of human trafficking, but despite not being willing to give specifics about just what was actually human trafficking in her story.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
That's an issue because people
McGowan.
claim to be victims of crimes, and then when you find out from them what actually happened, no crime has been committed. Like human trafficking is very specific. When someone takes away your right to refuse,
through force,
to do the job, through force. When someone because if
sex,
force
we're talking about
or genuine
sex
coercion isn't being used, well. No, I'm talking about all kinds of human trafficking because labor trafficking is the
legal
same.
definition of sex trafficking is if you, and I know this because somebody in the know, somebody who was involved with NCFM, right, sponsored my trip to go to the National Organization of Women's annual conference back in 2012. Right.
That's the one where they started out with the speech with
are the vaginas in the house? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay, so he was telling me about this one case in Baltimore, it was in Baltimore. Okay, but it originated in, I think, Chicago, right? So there's these two hookers, okay, and they weren't being pimped out, okay, but they were living in an apartment building. They were roommates in an apartment building. They were turning tricks, earning money, right, doing drugs. And they were in hock to their drug dealer. And so they owed all this money, so they needed to get out of town. And one of their neighbors, this very charitable man, right, is like, hey, you need friendly with them and everything, knew them. And he was just like, well, I'm heading to I forget what it was, one of those suburbs outside Baltimore that starts with an A. But he's like, I'm headed out there to visit family over the holidays. Do you want to ride? I'm driving out there. You want to ride? And they were like, yeah. And so he dropped them off at a hotel in Baltimore and then went and spent 2 weeks with his family in whatever A suburb it was. And then he came home, went home to Chicago. And a week later, he's got feds knocking at his door. And he's being charged with sex trafficking. Because the moment that he dropped them off to at that hotel in Baltimore, they started turning tricks in Baltimore. Right? And they got busted. And the cops were like, did somebody bring you here? I noticed your driver's license is for, says the address is in Chicago. Right? And they're like, yeah. Someone brought us here. And they were like, yeah, no, he totally transported us here. And yeah, so he got busted and he went through a 8-month legal ordeal because transporting someone across state lines for the purposes of them having sex right, is the definition of sex trafficking. And the entire case got thrown out, but not before he went through an 8-month legal battle for doing these 2 fucking women a solid.
Right. The case got
So
thrown
don't
out
tell me-
because the reason the case got thrown out and he didn't get convicted is because there's an essential part of that definition that was left out of what you said. So
Yes, I know,
the
I know, but
Administration for
what-
Children and Families, .gov, this is an actual official, like what this site says about what the law is going to be correct because it is a government website. Sex trafficking definition is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act in which the commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform such an act has not attained 18 years of age. So it's specific. What I said was correct.
Yes, what you said was correct. In application, not so much. Right?
In application by the cops, but in application by the courts, it's a different story. That's why the case got thrown out.
Just because the case got thrown out doesn't mean this guy wasn't put through a freaking 8 months of terror.
Right, but his ordeal doesn't change the definition. His ordeal was wrongdoing by police. That was something that
can we let Karen
make
her point? Let's just let Karen make her point.
Okay. I don't even remember what my point is now.
Okay, then let's do another paragraph. Brian,
all right, let me wait. I got more super chow. So I got one more. Oh no, I got 2 more. So Jeff gave us $10. Thank you, Jeff, and said, "You misunderstand Julie. She has spent her entire life in academia and publishing farming women for profit. She is a misogynist parasite who relies on keeping women believing that they are victims." Thank you for that. Yes, we know.
We talk about whether somebody like Julie Bendel is a misogynist or not. We know she's a misandrist, right? Well, if you're both, you're misanthrope.
Misanthrope.
Right?
Yeah, misanthrope.
Or, as Mike points out, oikophobic.
Yeah, if you're,
I think she is a misogynist and a misandrist, and not necessarily a misanthrope, because she hates men for certain reasons and she hates women for other reasons, right? It's not, you can't just lump it in, I just hate all people, right?
Yeah,
for
I gotcha.
XYZ, right? She hates women for ABC, men for XYZ, and so I think you do have to separate the two in cases like this, because
all right.
Well, there's nothing in the definition of misanthrope that says that your reasons for hating people have to all be the same.
All right, so I got another super chow. Got another super chow from Xerax for $5, and he says, "Hannah is wrong. I have it on good authority that some women find it sexy," by E. Jean Carroll. She must be correct because she won millions related to a similar case where the Socratic method was applied. I don't know what to tell you. This is true. Nobody understands how sexy rape is more than E. Jean Carroll, who is also coming after people for it. Okay,
super sexy.
Yeah.
Have a good day at work, Luigi.
You're fascinating to talk to. All right, so anyway, what was the next paragraph? Because I totally lost track. Lily admitted. Here we go. Lily admitted. Oh, I gotta turn off these things so I can switch the scene. So that you guys can see. So. I'm sharing the page on the vertical chat.
Oh my god, I'm talking to my son Luigi Mangione.
Oh, okay. Lily admitted she effectively dissociated herself during the 101 challenge in October. The 23-year-old, she's only 23, says she can only remember the first 5 or so encounters, and that after she attempted to blank it out.
Yes.
This is no surprise. Dissociation is a coping mechanism due to extreme trauma. The sex was filmed, and the pornography will make those who profit from OnlyFans, where Lily's videos have appeared, a lot of money.
You mean Lily? They'll make Lily a lot of money. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But she's also wrong about dissociation.
OnlyFans is owned by a woman.
Yeah. But you ever been on a long drive like from one city to another where you're driving more than an hour and everything. And if somebody were to ask you in the middle of that drive what the scenery looked like exactly, you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell them because
Yeah.
you zoned out,
There are
right?
moments where I'm driving, doing a long drive, and I actually try to remember what the last 10
Hmm.
minutes were, or even the last 1 minute was.
And you
And I'm
can't.
like, how did I even stay on the road?
Yeah,
And
you go into a mental state similar to your alpha stage of sleep. And
Yeah.
that happens during a lot of things that are either not very
Boring.
engaging. People would call them boring, right? Or for instance, so I have really, really bad asthma, and it was much worse when I was a kid, and it was actually life threatening. And I was advised to exercise by my doctor in order to make up for that and to get better. My lungs, their development was like 3 years behind when I was 13. And so I got into cross country running, which was pretty much a hellacious form of exercise for somebody with my
Oof.
disability. And in junior high, you run about 2.8 miles, and it's running 2.8 miles for an average person is hard, but running 2.8 miles for a severe asthmatic. And when I say severe, I had my first near-death experience with an asthma attack at like 18 months old. So we're not talking, me being whiny. Um, it was very hard, and it was very physically painful when you get to a point where you're oxygen deprived and you're overworking your lungs to make up for it. You get pain all the way across your back and all the way down to the bottom of your rib cage, and it just sits there and stays the entire time you're running. And there were a lot of times where I ran practice or I was in an event and really don't remember anything that happened. It wasn't a trauma response. It was a way of toughing out something that I wanted to get done. And
and
I don't think that I was a victim of that. And I don't think she was a victim of this. So again, Bendel is conflating things that are unlike or things that aren't related to each
yes.
other in order to make her point, to make it sound like this woman has experienced something that she did not experience and probably wouldn't appreciate being victimized for by some other woman who wasn't even there.
Well, she's presenting Julie Bennell is literally presenting her argument why she deserves a
Yep.
certain cut of Lily's attention um attention booty. You
Her
know,
attention payoffs.
her
Yeah.
attention payoff. That's what Julie is. She's gonna use every stupid trick in the book. The other thing is that, yeah, of course she was disassociating. She's engaging in an activity that's supposed to bond you to the person you're engaging it with. How is she going to do this activity without disassociating from the person she's with? Like, how
Even
is she?
Yeah.
even just beyond that, I mean, okay, speaking as somebody whose husband used to be a 14 times a day man, all right. Eventually you just lie back and think of England, like it's enough already, right? Like
Yeah.
I was done after 4 times, right? This is like, let's just get it on, get it decided, get it over with, and like I got dishes to do,
Yeah.
right? And it's like
It's not traumatic.
that's not a trauma response. That's just a like, this is just another chore in my day, eating up my time that I'd rather be watching stupid
Which actually makes
YouTube
me wonder about the
videos.
guys involved in this. Like, what do you get out of having an object demonstration that your sexuality is worth absolutely nothing to a person? Like, I mean, a lot. There was this one guy. At least I saw this in a comment on the documentary. And afterwards, he like was trembling, like his hands were shaking because of apparently what had happened. And another guy was worried that his father was going to kick him out. I mean, these are some pretty damaged men. Like I said, touch starved. Apparently, one wanted to lose his virginity, guaranteed. Like that was what he said. So it's like, I don't know. Like I think that this is probably the worst situation for a man to get those kinds of needs met. But then again, when you're hungry, cannibalism makes sense. So, but it's like, And of course, that's not even on Julie's radar at all. None of it.
No.
No, she doesn't
And-
care about those men.
No, nobody does. Everybody is
Well,
just
there's-
talking about Lily, which is probably the point of having done this.
Yes, that's
There's a
exactly
reason-
why she did this.
There's a reason why that madam at that escort agency, right, wrote an article in Australian media years and years ago telling wives to smarten up, right? Like, because she was like, more than half my business, right? The money that this business pulls in, this escort agency, doesn't even involve a happy ending, right? These men just want someone to be nice to them for a few hours during an evening, snuggle them in bed, and listen to them talk about things that they can't reveal to their wives. Like, I feel insecure in my job, or I feel like I'm not appreciated by my wife, or whatever, right? And she's
Men
just
want
like,
one
yeah, no.
thing, and it's fucking disgusting.
Yeah, that's the whole conversation. Like the whole conversation I've seen on this has been all about the men needing to extend themselves to make sure they protect Lily. How about Lily needing to extend herself to make sure she protects the 100 men that she just had sex with? And if they have a responsibility to her, why doesn't she have a responsibility to them? And in fact, since she's making money and they're going into something that she controls utterly, why doesn't she have even more responsibility?
Yeah.
Well, she
All
has
right.
responsibility for herself, and they have responsibility for themselves, and that's
Yeah,
the
but
end of it.
Yeah, I
right?
know that's
And
the end of it, Karen, but the argument here is that they
I
have responsibility for her.
I know.
And if
Yeah.
they have responsibility for her. Why
You know
does
what would have been
Well, there's-
traumatizing for her? You know what would have been traumatizing for Lily? Is if she had no takers.
Yeah, that would have
Nobody,
been true. That would
nobody
have been
willing to put up
traumatizing.
the $1,000.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
That's true.
I'm willing to
Yeah,
throw you 5 fucking bones every month to look at your tits, but I'm not willing to give you $1,000 for a 5-minute lay, right?
There's
Well,
the other aspect of this, though. I mean, and I'm going to go back to other types of work again. So I've worked in a whole bunch of different areas, and I've worked in food service as well as healthcare. And if you prepare food for the public and you sell it to the public, Karen, you know this, you've worked in food service too, and you sell them something that makes them sick, you can be responsible for that if you engaged in some kind of neglect, right?
Oh yeah, you're
So
right.
if you sell a package with something in it now in the United States, and there are certain things that are supposed to be labeled on the package because they are allergens. This product was made in an environment where it may have come into contact with nuts, for instance. You can be in trouble for failing to put that label on. If somebody with a nut allergy gets your product, gets exposed, and ends up in the hospital. And so there is a responsibility from a service provider's perspective. There is a responsibility to the consumer. And if she was treating these men as consumers, she still would have those types of responsibilities. She still has a responsibility for the seller end of the seller-consumer relationship. She's just not responsible for their choices, just like they're not responsible for hers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
All right.
actually, you're right. She's essentially made herself a public service,
Right. She's
Um,
created a business relationship with these men.
and she is responsible for preserving their health and the consumption of her service.
All
So
right,
yeah,
to the best of her ability,
To the
basically,
best
at
of
least
her
what she
ability.
has control over.
this is I wonder if she'll end up getting sued. I mean,
Yeah.
if any of
I
these
mean, if
guys
somebody's
get it,
traumatized, it's a possibility, you know.
yeah, maybe
All
this
right.
will knock that off. If one of these guys gets some horrible STDs and says that I was traumatized by her service, and then sues. They'll all
Yeah.
freaking shut up about culpability. No, actually, legally, she has it right now.
I'm pretty sure that she was tested beforehand. I'm pretty sure they were all tested beforehand.
Yeah,
Hope so.
Because
Yeah.
you can carry HPV
But
in
it's-
your throat and mouth
Yeah,
as well, right? Like,
yeah, you can get
so
throat
yeah,
cancer from it.
yeah.
But my point is, this is no different, even though it's sexual instead of selling food or fixing someone's toilet or transporting somebody to the the hospital in an ambulance while providing medical care. It is the provision of a service for money. It is a business
Mhm.
relationship between her and the people that she worked with, and she is responsible for her side of that business relationship, just like any other person who does business with the public.
Wow.
And the ethics of that should be the same. And any laws, like I'm not against the legalization of sex work and all that. I just think it should be subject to the same ethics and law that any other type of work is.
And presumably in the UK where it is legal, it is. So technically, her responsibilities, she has the greater responsibilities legally. So these people who are blaming women or the men for this are totally out to lunch.
Hmm.
In every capacity, Lily is responsible for this situation. Like
Yeah, Julie
men
Bindel
are
is really
responsible.
doing her a disservice.
The men are responsible simply for taking advantage of her business or her product, I guess. So they're only responsible for their one
Transaction.
transaction, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right, let's continue. All I know
Yes,
is
please.
that I wouldn't put my mouth on her if I had a nut allergy. Okay, so
That's true.
anyway, the story of Lily is similar to that of other women I've spoken to on OnlyFans. The middle class young women who appear on there tend to be those that have not previously been involved in prostitution. Many of the others, from disadvantaged and impoverished backgrounds, gravitated to the site during COVID when the brothels were closed. Make no mistake, whatever OnlyFans' attention, the site is prostitution behind a screen, but pimps and predators are never far away.
Not
Again,
madame.
Who is this
Not
person
I
madame.
just want to
going
point
around
out,
with a gun and
I don't
forcing
think,
women to put their tits on OnlyFans?
no, nobody is, but I don't think Julie Bindel knows that OnlyFans is run by women. And I
She
think that if
probably
she knew
also
that, she would have to change her narrative because it's not convenient to just say it's pimps because that
Yeah.
And
suggests men.
predators.
Well, she'd
Yeah.
have to trot out the supercharged female agency removal, which is,
Yeah.
you look for a man, a physical man in the vicinity, right? Then you look for a man that might be associated via some like a third party. So I don't know, maybe OnlyFans has a male accountant somewhere down the line. Then that's all
Yeah.
his problem. Then if you can't find any of the secondary associations, you just go with, well, women are being piloted by a little man in their head.
You make one up.
Yeah.
Like what she's done here is she's vaguely referenced a set of things that
Child sexual
sometimes are done by
trauma. She
men.
was
But
victimized by a man in the past. She was
well,
abused.
she's talking about things that people do, and pimps and madams are the same thing pretty much. And then she mentions predators, which there are predators of both sexes, but it's just a vague reference to them. They're never far away. Far away from what? OnlyFans is not a location. You can't go there in your car and get out in the OnlyFans parking lot and go into the OnlyFans store to get your tits out. It is something that you do online. You're doing it in your own home with your own
Yeah.
equipment and your own computer and your own internet service, and you are uploading the things that you put on OnlyFans. It is entirely controlled by the women who are using it. And by the way, the average earning of women on OnlyFans is not a living, right? The average woman who uses OnlyFans to publicize her tits or anything else that she wants to isn't making as much as she would make if she worked at McDonald's
Or Chipotle.
which I can't talk about Chipotle. If anybody that took the food safety classes at Speedway knows why. But in any case, yeah, I don't eat at Chipotle ever.
All right. Let's
So-
continue with the next paragraph. This is because there's a couple of other things we want to look at after this is over. So I want to get through this, and I only have a half hour before I have to go pick Lindsay up. So when women, oh, I should switch scenes here. Sorry. When women like Lily talk about being driven by sexual desire, this is all part of the fantasy constructed for men. No
Probably.
women or no woman has a fantasy to end up with the type of injuries that will occur from such extreme activities as having sex with multiple men. And yet lots of women do
Wrong.
it for free.
So,
Okay, but
wrong,
political
wrong,
lesbian Lily Bindle gets to decide what other women's sexual interests and sexual fantasies are. Does she know that things like BDSM and other kinks exist?
no,
Like,
that's
does
just
she know
men.
there are women that actually self-injure on purpose?
I wonder if she thinks that there's anything that women choose that they actually like. I've been talking to this individual who seems to be of a simp quality,
Yeah.
and on Twitter, and I finally gotten to the point where I'm just asking, what do you think Lily is responsible for? Like, what does Julie think women are responsible for? Maybe instead of asking her what she thinks they aren't responsible for, let's ask her what she thinks they are responsible for. I think that we would get a little bit more of a manageable list. I'm guessing nothing at all. So she essentially removes perception of women's agency in everything, and then says she's an advocate for women. But
yeah, I can tell you, okay, that Lily probably wasn't driven by sexual desire. Okay? Because she didn't know these men, right? Most of these men were probably not extremely attractive to her, right? And all of that. She wasn't, but she was driven by something inside her. Narcissism, greed, right? Okay. That she was going to be the woman who banged 100 men in one day, right? You know, like it was a female intrasexual competition, right? In terms of, you know, she's
Yes, it
going to get
was.
the
She literally
top
at the end
spot.
of the video, she's like, I did it. This isn't for most you ladies probably can't do it. I did it
That's right.
somehow.
That's
Like
right.
it was a brag.
And this
Yep.
and the idea of no woman has a fantasy to end up with the type of injuries that will occur from such extreme activities as having sex with multiple men. I'm sorry. As somebody who has had those kind of injuries, not from multiple men, okay, but just from the same man over and over and over again in the same day, okay? I don't know. There have been sexual encounters that I've had where I've been bruised all over. I had grass and dirt in my vagina. Okay? And yeah,
Been
I'm
there.
sorry.
Just read women's fiction.
Okay. And my muscles, I could not crouch down to get something out of the cupboard, the under counter cupboard, right? The bottom cupboards. I couldn't crouch down without feeling my muscles burning, right? I had whisker burn all over my face, and every fucking time I crouched down to get something from a low shelf, I was just like, I'd just go full on flush, right? With the memory of like that extremely intense sexual encounter that left me dirty, bedraggled, injured, and hyperthermic. I was hypothermic. Okay.
Karen, you're dragging us into the gutter again. We get
what
it.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
but she's right. She's right. That fantasy does exist.
Can we
and
just
it's
boil
very
it
common.
down, though?
It
Please.
fantasy does exist.
When it's not a fantasy, when it's reality, it still turns you on for like a full week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That BSMA, yes, there are women who exist with this fantasy. No, Lily probably wasn't engaging in it. She was just wanting to make money or get attention.
And get attention.
Or both.
And Julie has crawled out of the woodwork to be like, you owe me some attention, Lily. I'm gonna steal some from you like a damn magpie. All right, let's.
Next,
She has
next.
to say it in the voice of what's her name, that Mike Wazowski. But,
Oh yeah, she does look like her.
where's
Okay.
your
Look like her.
paperwork?
You know, and the
All
thing
right.
is, I was thinking about what would make Julie force Lily to take responsibility. If Lily had started all this by saying, I have a lot of compassion for men who are feeling like they're never going to lose their virginity and feel ostracized by society, and Julie would probably listen to this and say that slut deserved everything she got.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's okay. Let's keep going.
All right. All right. I'm gonna read this one sentence and the other paragraph as part of the same paragraph. Okay. So,
Okay.
but the sex industry has no scruples, only a desire for profit. Take that, capitalism. While Lily's picture has been splashed across the newspapers this week, the spotlight should fall instead on the men who create the demand for harmful sexual services. We should not be fooled by the money Lily is supposedly making, but rather, supposedly, like she's doing it for free, but rather need to be aware of the danger she is in and the money being made for OnlyFans.
Which is also going to women. Does that make it okay, Julie? Like,
Yeah, it's still going to women.
Yeah.
Can I just say real quick before you guys jump on this? We don't really know the identity of these men. Most of them are choosing to hide their identities. I don't know if you saw that in the
for their own
documentary.
protection.
The men are hiding their identities while Lily is just out there, right? So first off, that's interesting because the men are, at least on some level, I think, possibly a bit ashamed of being a part of this thing. Because, like Lindsay and I were talking about this yesterday, and she said, could you imagine doing that and being like number 99? And I was like, dude, I don't want to be number 1 because I don't know, like the fact that she was in the headspace to start this means that she already had a triple digit body count, probably. And so it doesn't matter that you're like a part of this big mess of a thing. But of course, I'm not like, starved for like female attention. I'm a happily married man. This isn't a problem for me. So I can kind of see where it's coming from. But another thing, I don't know how progressive Julie Bindel is, but a lot of these people who are saying that the men should be shamed, I think that they have this image that it's 100 white guys, and I don't think it's 100 white guys. You know what I'm
Probably
saying?
not.
Probably
Like
not
I
100 white
No,
would
guys.
bet. I'm look, not that it matters, but I'm just throwing the progressive shit in their face. If you find out who these men are, and they're all from like Pakistan and India and Asia and Africa and shit, you're going to feel like garbage. And I bet they are. And so that's the thing too, that I just want to put it up there, because when Julie Bindel says 100 men, when all these women are complaining about the men, I think there are assumptions they are making that would shock them if they learned the truth. So anyway.
I actually looked at the men that, aside from this one guy, which I'm pretty sure was Dutch and approached the situation like a Dutch man would.
Like an autist would, you mean?
Yeah, like Dutch are basically the autistic race. He's like, yeah, it cost this much. They're like, oh, was it worth it? Yeah, I think it was. God damn. But the rest of them actually struck me just because, well, first of all, I noticed that the guys who were queuing up were probably on the small side.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, they were short kings.
Yeah, there was like
short
there
pawns because they
lot.
went along with this, but yeah,
There was a lot
short
of
kings.
short kings, quote unquote, there. And that the reason why I noticed it is I think the documentarian is like the Scandinavian guy who's like 6'4", and he's gonna probably dwarf a lot of men, even men who are significantly small, like not that significantly smaller. But when I compared his shoe size to the guys he was walking past, we're talking about 5 foot nothing to like 5'9". I don't think there was any guy there that was like over 6 foot who's
short cells.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And I noticed a lot of skin tones that were a bit on the taupe, not the darker than taupe side.
Ethnically beige.
So I'm guessing that what walked through those doors, the people who walked through those doors were sons of immigrants who are experiencing being frozen out of the dating market. Because nobody wants to talk about this. These are the guys, the short guys who are sons of immigrants from India, from Pakistan, from certain parts of Africa. I mean, they can usually do better, but these guys are being frozen out of the dating market, and
Well,
they have
when
no options. And the other reason
when
why I think that this is the case is because one of the guys who talked about his father kicking him out of this home. The only guy who's going to kick their son out of the home for basically having sex is somebody from a conservative culture.
Yeah.
So I think that this is
yeah,
entirely this woman exploiting guys who have been frozen out of. Did I say she's exploiting? I'll go with it. She's exploiting guys who've been frozen out of the dating market because they've been brought to a culture that doesn't appreciate them at all. Like, I mean, they probably have a chance in their own culture, but because we're importing all of these young men into this culture, and I'm going to be honest here, they think it's white men because that perfects the fantasy. That's, from what I can tell, the most attractive men on the planet are white men and black men who are like 1/3 white. Like this is what I've been seeing from every quarter. So I'm guessing you're right, Brian. It's not white men who are doing this because white men have options.
yeah,
Usually.
and the short thing really, like, okay, so you might have heard me wish my son Luigi Mangione to have a good day at work when he left for work, and it's because he left for work in a black hoodie underneath a green flak jacket, because that's his uniform. That's his, like, that's what he wears when he walks to work, right? Okay, and but he was telling me, all these women online are super, super, like, hot for Luigi Mangione, who gunned down that healthcare CEO, right? Health insurance company CEO.
Mhm.
Until they found out he was 5'7", and then they're like, ew. Ew.
Yeah,
All right.
that's one of those things I've seen all over social media. And before it was him, it was some other felon, and before it was that felon, it was that guy that got a modeling career out of how many women just thought his mugshot was so pretty.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And then,
yeah.
oh, yeah, no. And then there was the Boston bomber,
Oh my god.
the one who survived, right?
That was put
Yeah.
on the cover of the Rolling
Well, don't
Stone of all
don't forget
things,
Wade
right?
Wilson, the guy who killed 2 women, not Deadpool, but
Mhm.
Wade
Mhm.
Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, let me finish this off because I want to say something about Luigi Mangione. But
Okay.
let me finish this off first. So this site and others like it should be shut down. Oh, let me put the thing back up. I could just read the rest of it, but I think I'm gonna put the screen back up so people who are watching us on the vertical can see it. This site and others like it should be shut down. The women caught up in pornography and prostitution should be supported to get out, and the men that drive the demand for such content condemned and held accountable. I don't know what
For
held
what?
accountable means,
Yeah,
but
that's a
For
really
what?
good question.
I don't know. I don't know.
You
Okay.
know, down the street from me, um, is one of the gas stations where I used to work actually, and 3 other gas stations all on the same corner. 2 of them are on one block on the same intersection. So there's like one on one corner, one across the street from it. Then you go to the next street, there's another one, and then the 4th corner has a different type of business. But if you go down the street, there's another gas station, right? And there's morality attached to selling oil products in the United States, especially if you have any association with the environmentalist movement, at least the communist end of it. Um, and so it it's not an equivalent, right? But it could be discussed in the same terms that people who work at these gas stations are providing a service to people who create a demand for the substance that is just so immoral for them to dispense because of the damage that the environmentalist movement says it's doing to the earth. And whether you believe that or not, whether you're on the climate change side or the climate skeptic side is completely irrelevant. You know that the morality argument exists. So if I go to the gas station, one of those gas stations down the street, and I fill up my vehicle because I have to drive to work since it's winter, and walking 4 miles would really suck right now. Does that make me an exploiter? Should they be shut down so that the people that are working there don't have to be associated? And should those people be supported to get out of the oil industry, including the ones that are making millions and billions? Should they be supported to get out because their job is immoral and you think it's degrading because they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, and it's dirty and nasty and does harm to their planet?
Okay.
Based on, like, I'm
I have-
sorry, but when you put that argument toward any other profession that has any moral questions in regard to how it affects the people involved and how it affects the greater community, it becomes a ridiculous and stupid argument. If
Okay, here-
women want out of prostitution and pornography, there are already multiple organizational supports for them to get out. They already have tools to get out. They already have places to go. They already have money available to them. They already have people available to help them find other jobs. If they want to do that, even women who, like this woman, are not being forced and are choosing to do this on their own, if they want out, if they suddenly don't like it, there is nothing to prevent them from getting out right now.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Bindle is talking about it like they have no choice.
Yeah.
It's
No.
bullshit.
And okay. So let's take the analogy to another
level.
Another level that involves something that is less that is more arguably more morally comparable, right? Drug dealers and drug users.
Yep.
Okay. Who do we punish more? The people buying the drugs and using the drugs, or the people selling the drugs?
Not in this instance, huh?
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. Like, I think about how you're talking about public safety, Hannah, and how when you provide a service, you become responsible for the public safety and any kind of impact that your service has on public safety. She is completely irresponsible as a public vendor. And there must be something some kind of public health statute that she's violating.
I don't
Because
know
she's
that
literally making it possible. Like, you couldn't even send semen through the mail.
No,
Like this,
but
that would get you in serious trouble. And yet she is allowed to expose a whole bunch of men to bio waste.
Yeah, if she actually
just
did get
condoms.
semen in her eye, then that had to have been a situation where at least some of
The
those
guy
men were
took off the
exposed,
condom and it
right?
splattered. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's there is a danger there. And the other thing is, for just for people to understand, as with regard to STIs, condoms will protect against the transmission of bloodborne pathogens like AIDS, like HIV, but they don't prevent the transmission of things like herpes and HPV and stuff like that are on your skin and that will transmit between your skin and someone else's skin because your skin is wet. And unlike men's sexual fluids, which sort of have one specific area at the head of the penis that they come out of, women end up messy like all the way down our thighs. And so it really
speak for
can
yourself,
be,
Hannah.
oh, good grief.
You
Yeah,
are you sliding off bar stools?
not
these
bar
days?
stools. I slide off the bed. But the thing is, women do excrete quite a bit more sexual fluid than men do. Even the fluid that men excrete for lubrication is not comparable in quantity and how much it spreads. right?
I'm
It'll
just
stay
saying.
inside the condom. And so men are more in danger of contracting an STI that lives on the skin from a woman than the other way around.
Can I just
And so there is that.
I mean, we sue outlets if they give people stomach flu.
Yeah.
Like if they don't take proper precautions to prevent stomach flu. And she has constructed basically an STD buffet. And nobody
We
cares.
don't know
like
that. We don't know that. For all we know, okay?
Yeah, but we
because
don't know that if
okay,
something
but
random.
okay, no, but for all we know, every one of these guys was tested. It doesn't take that long to get a test done, right? To have the results come back and to present them, right? So, and she did use condoms, so like it appears to be that she was taking precautions and she probably got herself tested, right? So I'm not going to say that she was endangering anyone, right? I'm just saying that she's the one with the primary responsibility as the person, right, who initiated the entire thing, right, to make sure that everybody else involved is clean so that she stays clean, that everybody involved is clean so that she stays clean and all of the other people involved stay clean, right? And I have to think that if she was gonna make a documentary about this, right, she probably wasn't gonna risk giving anybody herpes.
Hopefully not. And you're right. There's pretty much a limit to the available personal protective equipment for this job. And
Yes.
that's basically what a
she's also
condom
on
is in this
record.
job.
Also on
Like-
record, apparently being confused that HIV is transferred sexually. So I think that honestly, that statement opens her up for a tremendous liability. And if
Yeah, she
anybody
should
wants to
definitely be
shut
more
this
careful
shit
there.
down, yeah, if any guy wants to shut this shit down, you're not going to do it by be not saying no. Like like you say, like any of the men who involved in, if they said no, they immediately got new guys. There was a whole bunch of guys who apparently said
Right.
no at the last minute. They found takers, because of course you are. When you broadcast something like this, you are going to find men who are willing to take it, to take part in this, because you're creating a huge broadcast and you're getting the small percentage of men in the population who will do it. But my point is, if a man wants to stop this, sue her for creating a public health hazard, and she's already confessed to the fact that she has not done due diligence when it comes to keep making sure that the public is safe in what she's doing. So, I mean, if she's going to go up in public and say, oh, I don't know, I'm just a little girl, I didn't know how HIV is contracted, then you shouldn't be involved in this. Just like if a food service industry says, oh, I didn't know you could get salmonella from poorly cooked chicken, or I didn't know that you could get I don't know, E. coli.
Listeria or
Yeah,
whatever.
you can
Yeah.
get E. coli by handling
But-
food with shit on your fingers.
To be fair, though, I don't know if her generation takes AIDS as seriously
Well,
as
it
our
doesn't
generation
matter,
did,
Hannah.
because it's never been the death sentence for them
Is
that
ignorance
it was for us when we were young.
is
If we,
ignorance
you know,
justification?
it's not a matter of ignorance. It's a matter of it's not as scary. It's not the
Okay,
monster under the bed anymore.
True.
So
but
she wouldn't have looked
I know,
into
but
the
she-
information as much
And if
as
she
somebody
was-
our age
but
would have
she
when
would
we're young.
know. But
Diligent.
okay,
But I will say this:
okay, you
in
guys.
terms of liability, one of the things that you're forgetting is, in a business, when you have a relationship with the public and you are obligated to do your end of protection in the business interaction, your liability is somewhat limited by the existence of available personal protective equipment. For instance, I can't be held liable for something that gets through gloves and a mask because there isn't something else that's available for me to use in my job. I'm currently working as a direct support professional for intellectually disabled adults. And most of the time, I don't have to do anything that even requires gloves and a mask, right? But for instance, I pass meds, and my personal protective method. It's not an equipment. It involves certain confirmations that I have to make sure of when I'm passing the meds. Is it the right thing? Am I giving it to the right person? Is it the right dose? Am I giving it in the right manner? And there's a set of things you have to remember, right? If I do all those things and I've done everything that I am supposed to do, and then the client has an allergic reaction to a medication that they've taken before and not been allergic to, they're not going to hold me responsible for that. And it's similar in that if there is no such thing as a piece of personal protective equipment that can prevent the transmission of herpes, HPV, and all that, and it's legal for you to sell sex, it's assumed at that point everybody involved knows the risk, and as long as you are doing the mandatory things,
Not.
and like you don't know what the mandatory things are.
Yeah, but I know that she's not even doing the mandatory things.
But you
dealing
don't,
with-
because you don't know if
I've
she's
seen
got a
what she's
whole set of people working with her. You don't know if there was mandatory testing
I
or if
have
testing
seen
isn't
the
mandatory.
documentary. Based on the documentary, she isn't even making basic cleanliness protocols of dealing with potential biohazards. Like
But
they
we don't
literally
know
let
if that's mandated. That's the thing. If
yeah, but
there's not an actual statute that says you have to take a bath in between customers, for instance, for a prostitute, if there's not something that says that, you can't be held liable for not doing it unless
okay, but
somebody can
fine, she
actually
can't be
prove to
held
a court.
liable.
That's what I'm
Maybe
saying.
we
Like
should
we
set legal
should not be
precedent.
talking about. We shouldn't be making
Okay, let me get an word in edgewise
proclamations
here.
about legal arguments that people should be
Let me get a
suing for
word in
something unless
edgewise here.
there's something that we can
If
specifically cite.
if the UK sees prostitution as a service,
Hmm.
right, and presumably it's probably going to be a service in line with any other service that handles bodily waste, are you allowed as a nurse to have people wade through a room full of bodily waste on the floor? Because that's what they were showing in the documentary.
But
She
the question
literally had-
is, do the regulations for the medical profession apply on paper, on the books, to this profession? Because if it's fair to argue that they should. It's fair to argue that it would be prudent to do that. But it isn't a good idea to argue that somebody should file a lawsuit based on the assumption that they do if we don't know that.
It's illegal to run a brothel, so I guess that the way they're getting away with it is that they're saying that this is pornography.
Right.
Okay, so
It's kind of skirting the definition of pornography, though, if instead of paying most of the actors, they're making them pay to be in the film. That's kind of strange.
I think we got into the weeds.
yeah,
And
Yeah,
it's 3:00,
yeah.
and I'd like to
I guess
would
my
like to-
final statement on this is basically Julie Bindel wants this shut down because it's something she can't do, not because it's something this woman shouldn't be allowed to do.
obviously, Julie
She
Bindel
doesn't-
is saying all this attention, I deserve my cut.
Yeah,
what
she
this
doesn't she doesn't like it because men are involved, and she presumes that these men are going to get something out of it, and men shouldn't be allowed. Although I'm sure there are men who thought they were, and there are probably a lot of them that walked away from that questioning everything afterwards. Like, why did I do that? What have I participated in? And the downstream effects of that may not be felt for a little while, whether that is actual like consequences of maybe she was a super spreader and they all have something now, or one of them was, and they pass it on to each other. I mean, if you're a dude that participated in this, you've actually had more dick than pussy. So that makes you gay. And that's all I'm going to say about it. But look, one thing I wanted to bring up that I thought was really interesting was the timing of this event in line with the Luigi thing. Because you're looking at what I think we're talking about here is kind of the flip side, or like the other side of the consequences that we typically talk about, which are for men and all of their issues. And that is a product of men being denied over and over, right? Denied their humanity, denied access to like their own ability to like forge their own future, denied a decent education. They get cut out of jobs. They get lower priorities. They're charged more for insurance, like whatever it is. All these little ways. And the story of Luigi is, well, what they're saying now, and of course we don't know what is true and not true or whatever, but based on what we do know, which are some little things, he was somebody who was angry at the elites because of his particular health problems. He had this, he was living with back pain. He has like pins in his back, according to, some of the info we've gotten. He's sexually frustrated. I think he was like a short guy as well, was struggling.
5'7".
He was on, 5'7". He was on incel forums, right? So I don't want to say he's an incel, but he's kind of like in that, area of men struggling. And so for decades, we're looking at a situation where we have a man who has been denied, in his mind, everything. And he essentially, ends up lashing out violently. And then we have on the other side, women that have been denied nothing. And you have women like this woman who's like, I'm going to bang 100 dudes. And then I'm going to bang 1,000 dudes, and we're going to tape it all, and I'm going to get paid for it. And both of them are miserable. And this is because, like, while on the one hand, we do want to address what the ways that men are being sort of blocked from, being able to do what they want to do, and like treating them like human beings and honoring their work and their sacrifice and all that. We should also be telling women, like, this isn't good for you. Like, this whole discussion about this being like, does this go with the free market? And who's harmed by this? I'm not going to like pretend like this woman is a victim and that men are the perpetrators, but she is not going to be happy. Like, this is going to make her money, and she's going to be miserable in the long run. And
Okay,
this is the problem is that we have essentially not held women to any standard, and we let them do whatever they want. And even though Julie Bindle's complaining, the only reason why she is because men are in some way abstractly benefiting from it, whether they're watching it or there's like people watching the documentary out of like some fascination with it, or they're actually one of the 100. But women who are allowed whatever, like, this is basically the absolute outcome of total and complete liberation for women. That's what you're going to get, and they're going to hate it. License.
Okay. I want to get in there.
No. I want to get in here because I've been trying to get in here from this.
Yes, I know, Karen. You have not been able to talk at all.
Yeah,
ahead,
no.
Karen.
But what I'm saying is, okay, you can't say that she's miserable now. You can't. Okay, she got some cum in her eye. Okay, you can't say
she will be.
Now.
I'm not saying she is. She will be. She will be.
Let's put it this way. If she doesn't inject that money up her arm and actually puts it in some kind of savings account, she probably will be able to retire in a couple years.
No, now she'll be able to retire now. 2.5 million plus what she's been earning on OnlyFans for the last year.
That's not a lot of misery. That can
which is hundreds of thousands of dollars a month.
Well, right? let Karen finish her point.
She could retire to a hobby farm and raise ponies and train them as emotional support ponies to accompany freaking progressive liberals on flights.
Okay, is that what you wanted to say? Because this is what I want to say. All
yeah,
right?
No, I'm just not buying the fact that she's miserable right now. She's gonna be, probably, but she's not miserable right now. Oh, I got some cum in my eye. Yeah, that's not trauma.
Okay. All right. This is what I wanted to point out. Okay. First of all, like, we're talking about culpability, and I think that's really critical. The whole discourse around this is that men are responsible because a woman has set up a situation that they have taken advantage of. And if they were all just good people and avoided it, that this woman wouldn't be in this situation. They make that argument when women do stupid things that end up with sexual assault. And now they're making that argument when this woman has consensually engaged in something she's still not responsible for, because if men were just better, Like if all men were just better, she wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
At what point do you actually recognize that? And I'm still having this argument on Twitter. They're insisting that everyone's equally responsible now. Now they've moved away from men are more responsible. Everyone's equally responsible.
But just put this bitch in a burqa already, okay? Just fucking do it.
100 sex acts. If each of those men is responsible for one, there's no way that there's equivalent responsibility here. And they're appealing to this vision of a perfect world fallacy, that women only need to take responsibility in a world where men would never do it. Like, and they don't even have to take responsibility. We can't look at, hey, lady, if you didn't want to be fucked by 100 men, don't consent to having sex with 100 men. No, we can't say that. We can't say that. We have to say, no, all men need to become perfect angels so that she can say to 100 men, I would like to have sex with you, sir. And every one of those 100 men will somehow turn her down without making her feel bad. Because if they did actually turn her down, then there's another issue of, them being gay or whatever,
or misogynists.
Yeah, they're misogynists.
Or traditionalists. Ew, those icky men who think about body count.
Yes, exactly. There would be some other way to condemn them.
Julie Bindel would write an article about how they were slut shaming her for wanting sex.
Yeah. So this is, no matter what, we always land on women are not to blame, men have all blame, and there is no equivalent blame here. Every single one of those men, and you can only reduce them down to their individual actions. That's where guilt lies. I know all of you love to say, well, if one man does it, all men are guilty of it. That's not the case. There's only individuals making choices that can be held accountable for them. One man had control over one sex act. She had control over 100, and now she's going to have control over the next 1,000. All right. That is her having 100 times more control. Yeah, actually, what? That was the reaction.
There's more to it, because remember, you pointed out
of the guy who was doing the documentary. He walked into the room and he almost puked.
Yeah,
because of what he said about the smell. And that's why I'm saying that there's got to be some public statute that she's violating. But regardless,
well, I also want to point out, because you said, one guy was each guy was responsible for one sex act.
Mm-hmm.
But really, she was responsible for each sex act, because she was going to do it whether it was with each of those guys or with 100 other guys, right? But what those guys were really responsible was whether or not they were involved in the sex act. She chose they're not responsible for her participation at all.
Yeah,
they couldn't have stopped her if they wanted.
It would have been anyone. Yeah.
So it just like, people who make the argument, if I didn't buy drugs from this person, somebody else would. It's true. You have no control over whether the guy that used to live next door to me is a drug dealer, right? I have no control over it. I can only control that I don't buy the drugs, and that's it. He could still be a drug dealer. Well, he's not around to be a drug dealer anymore, but he would have still been a drug dealer no matter who was buying from him. There's always going to be somebody else that wants it.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
Okay. All right.
Lindsay up,
yeah. So. All right. Okay. So we're done the article. We have once more waded into the insanity, which is the normie mind when it comes to women's accountability. Although I don't know
whether Julie Bindel is.
I'm talking about everybody else. Okay, maybe all of the people who are insisting that this woman doesn't bear primary responsibility for having had sex with 100 people in a day. Like, I guess maybe they're not normies. They're just something like unbelievable.
I just honestly, I don't care. I don't care. Like the people who are framing her as a victim, right? From both sides, right? Traditionalist, feminist, right? Framing her as a victim. Okay. I don't think she's a victim. I don't. Okay. And she's responsible for her actions. because that's how you adult, okay? And she's a grown-ass adult, and so she did what she did, and as long as she did it in a responsible way, where everybody got STD tests and all that crap, right? And war protection and all of that, right? I don't give a fuck, right? She could be traumatized out the wazoo. Don't fucking care. She could be riding high, cashing, rolling in a pile of freaking $250 million $1 bills. Don't fucking care. Okay? I don't care, right? Other than the response to this from both sides being, oh, well, let's see if there's some way we can pin this on men and how bad they are.
Yes. And like, you're right. It's just, it is at the end of the day. And I wonder what the next stage of not holding women accountable is going to be. Like the next Lily Phillips, what is she going to just acquire men through gunpoint and they'll still be to blame? Probably. Well, at what level do we stop and say, hey, actually women are responsible?
Does anybody remember that case in Chicago where that young single mother killed her 2 kids, right? And all of the early news stories on it were like, oh, well, she was a good mother, but she just slipped through the cracks and she didn't get the help she needed. And her ex was the baby daddy was trying to get custody of the kids and she was just scared that he was gonna. I'm like, maybe he was trying to get custody of the fucking kids because his baby mama was a fucking psycho.
Yeah, we've bypassed the next step already. I mean, we are already in a legal environment in which a woman can molest an underage boy, get pregnant from molesting him, retain custody of the child after proving herself to be a child molester. Sole custody, that's right. And sue him for child support, her victim for child support, and collect it after she gets out of, if she goes to jail, after she gets out of jail. And there have been such cases. And judges have basically treated the boy's inability to stop the molestation as consent.
Yeah.
For purposes of assigning child.
All right, yeah, we got it. We got
there you go.
Okay, we gotta go.
All right. So
Allison,
thank you guys. Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. If you want to send us a message at any point while this show is offline, you can do so at feedthebadger.com or send us a tip, feedthebadger.com at /justthetip. And if you want to support the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. I'm at some time this week, or this month, I'm gonna try to do a shill, but I'm still working on that. And this was a very, very, very busy show, so I won't do it today. Anyway, back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, yeah, let's get out of here. All right. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. You'll find a link to the article. It's an archive link, of course, in the description because I don't want to get the Atlantic any clicks. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one. And I'll see you in the Patreon show at about 4 p.m. Eastern time. Talk to you guys later.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.